Guillermo, Emil, Amok to you. Hey, before we start our show, let me tell you, my show, 69 Emil Amok, or Emil Amok 69, it doesn't matter, upside down, right side up, it's all the same. It's a new show. If you saw it, a bit of it, over the course of the year, it always changes. Did I once mention Venezuela at any juncture of or any stage or any iteration of Emil Amok 69 when I did it in Canada or Fresno or San Francisco? No. So when I do it in San Francisco coming on January 17th, Emil Amok 69 at Playground-SF, check it out, get your tickets, Potrero Stage, and that's at 3695 18th Street up in Potrero Hill. 69 Emil Amok, there he is. And you can see it's January 17th at 7 p.m., January 26th at 8:30 p.m., February 2nd at 8:30, and February 7th at 2:30 p.m. Come see it. A lot of people have said some nice things about my performances. Comical, often profound observations to the Manhattan Digest when I performed at the New York City Fringe. The Orlando Weekly said, stand-up monologue rant, enjoy keeping pace with Guillermo's brilliant mind. They said it, not me. Funny, poignant, the Orlando Weekly. So there's a QR code, if you like QR codes. And there I am with a mic. And it's a fun show. I'll spill the beans. I talk about my trunk derangement syndrome. And it's different now than it was when I did it a year ago. Of course it is. I know the way to Venezuela now. So I need your help. Box office, I do this as part of the Solo Fest at Playground San Francisco, Playground-SF. And they're saying, we're hoping for sales to pick up. No, we want sales to pick up. And here's the thing. Tickets are by donation, meaning you can come, you can come in free, come in for $1. It's by donation, right? You get tickets at the door, get your tickets, say, hey, I'm going to donate 50 cents to Emil because he owed me, $15, for lunch for something. Or something, whatever your rationale, just show up. And if you really like the show, then you could donate to Playground. It's in there on the ticket there. If you go to Playground-SF and go to the box office, 69 Emil Amok, a real journalist stands up because I'm a real journalist. Some people don't say, are you a real journalist? Yeah, you talk all your nonsense, not opinion, reported opinion, not rant, reported opinion. And there's a difference. So 69 Emil Amok, there it is. January 17th, 7 p.m., January 26th, 8:30 p.m., February 2nd, 8:30 p.m., February 7th, 2:30 p.m. It's at Playground-SF. Yeah, that's where you go get your tickets. And it's by donation, so you can see it for free. You wouldn't want to, though, because even if you saw the show live and we took out a hat and passed the hat, you'd say, oh, Emil deserves this. They did that in Canada. Anyway, check it out. Lots of news today. I talked about my Venezuelan beauty queen theory the other day. And I guess people didn't think much of it. But the reality is, there is no rationale for being in Venezuela. Except, so anything that someone posits out there is acceptable, is logical compared to the actions of the Trump administration. So they go in and get Maduro. They say it's for drugs. No, it's not for drugs. Today, you see, no mention of drugs at all. It appears to be oil. We finally chased down that tanker, the Bella One. And it's really weird because it's licensed or registered to Guyana, but it is a Venezuelan tanker flying under the Russian flag. The Russians claim it. The English have helped the United States. So boom, we've got, this is geoglobal politics happening in real time, and you should be concerned about it. This is a matter of national security, and we got a guy like Donald Trump running this thing where he thinks, oh, we're going to get all this oil from Venezuela. Oh, sure, yeah. Am I going to pay anything less than $4 a gallon in the San Francisco Bay Area anytime soon? Anyway, we would be talking more about the Venezuela. I think, to get it back to my beauty queen theory, Donald Trump is doing it. If you got to follow the women, it's because, Venezuela has more beauty queens than the United States. Donald Trump used to be the owner of the Miss Universe pageant. This is an ulterior motive. And if there's a weakness in Donald Trump, it is women. Follow the women. Stormy Daniels, E. Jean Carroll, Virginia Giuffre, Ghislaine Maxwell. Even Susie Wiles is able to get away saying stuff about Donald Trump. You wonder why. She said, oh, Donald Trump has an alcoholic personality. That explains it all, doesn't it? So it's got to be the beauty queens. That's my oil for beauty queen theory. Or blood for beauty queens. Oil for beauty queens. Nothing makes sense in this world. We shouldn't even be talking about Venezuela. And fortunately or unfortunately, something happened in Minnesota where we're not talking about on the news that Venezuela is still top of the news with Maduro in jail. We're talking about the ICE shooting in Minnesota. If you have seen the video, it's sad because it's inconclusive, because it's the wrong angle, it's the wrong view. We don't see it all. We don't even know really what's going on. It's so far away, the perspective. But a 37-year-old white woman is shot, not an ultra-left radical. Donald Trump, before we came on, said, incidents like these are happening because of the radical left threatening, assaulting, and targeting our law enforcement officers and ICE agents on a daily basis. They're just trying to do the job of making America safe. We need to stand by and protect our law enforcement officers from this radical left movement of violence and hate. Yeah, like Donald Trump and the J6 folks respect to the Capitol Police. Oh, yeah, January 6th. I'm just getting over the acid reflux of January 6th. I'm just getting over that. That was a sad day. Sad day. That was no celebration of a day of love. Go over the videos of all that happened, all that transpired. 1,500 people arrested. The pardoning of all of those people. And the reversal of Trump to call it a day of love. And the reversal of all the people who are beholden to Trump. Lindsey Graham saying, that's it, I'm done with this. And now, who's there, on the front teat, right? Lindsey Graham. 5 years later. Hasn't learned. He knows what 69 is. The 69 world. Let me bring on my good friend, Daniel Phil Gonzalez, College of Ethnic Studies, Asian American Studies Professor Emeritus, Asian American Politics. That's his beat. And he comes on our show to talk about the news. And, Hi, Dan. How are you?
Even more worried than I was yesterday.
Yeah, isn't that something? I thought, I went on Monday and just reacted to the weekend. And I thought, well, should we go on January 6th and do something? And I said, well, let's wait. Maybe we'll get a reaction from Congress or they'll do something. And then this happened, the ICE shooting. You saw the video. What did you think?
I need a better perspective on the video, but there are reports from witnesses that the agent who fired into the car, into the SUV, and killed the driver, may have been touched by the vehicle. Now, does that mean that he had adequate probable cause to shoot to kill?
Yeah.
And there's no ready answer to that. I cannot take a position that what he did was completely unjustified. I don't think it was. My initial position is I really question his action.
Yeah.
But that's not the issue. The issue is, would it be legally justified in a court of law from the perspective of the ICE agent? Would it be reasonable for him to react in a manner consistent with his fear, right, of lethal harm? That his life was in danger and the lives of others were in danger, or the lives of others were in danger. That's really where the issue is at. I don't think it was adequate provocation for that. I really don't.
Well, you got to go inside his mind if you can. He'll testify, and who will testify otherwise? The woman is dead, and there may be witnesses to say something about where the officers were, how far or how fast the SUV was going, if it really posed a threat. But one officer or one ICE agent is in the hospital. So
I've heard reports that she was steering hard right, which was steering away from the officer that was at the left corner of her vehicle and who was the person who actually fired the mortal shots. I really have doubts about it. The problem once again is that they could stand by it, and a court of law could say he was legally justified. Okay.
So here's what the AP said. ICE officer shot and killed a Minneapolis driver on Wednesday during the Trump administration's latest immigration crackdown, a shooting that federal officials said was an act of self-defense, but that the city mayor described as reckless and unnecessary, although he used choicer, more profane words. The woman was shot in front of a family member during a traffic stop in a residential neighborhood south of downtown Minneapolis, just a few blocks from some of the oldest immigrant markets and about a mile from where George Floyd was killed in 2020. Her killing quickly drew a crowd of hundreds of angry protesters. Now, this is the government response, official response. I read something that Donald Trump said it's the radical left. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, while visiting Texas, described the incident as an, quote, act of domestic terrorism carried out against ICE officers by a woman who, quote, attempted to run them over and rammed them with her vehicle. An officer of ours acted quickly and defensively, shot to protect himself and the people around him. But Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey blasted that characterization as garbage and criticized the federal deployment of more than 2,000 officers to the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul as part of this crackdown. So you heard what Kristi Noem said, self-defense, Dan. I know what you said previous, but does she have any reason? What do you think her best evidence is that it's self-defense?
She doesn't have any. She doesn't have, she's in Texas. The best that we've got is reports from Homeland Security. And you've heard what the Homeland Security person, I think her last name was McLaughlin or something. And she's the one who came up with the self-defense statement initially. And that's, of course, mimicked by Ms. Noem. And, she looked really cute in her cowboy hat. But,
that's the thing about Kristi Noem.
No. Calling it domestic terrorism is one hell of a jump, okay? And this is typical of the rhetoric that they use to excuse governmental overreach and governmental violence, okay?
Yeah. Well, look, this is a woman who likes to shoot her dog, right? And this is a woman who's trigger happy.
I don't even want to go there. This is a woman who just says whatever is going to get her headlines, okay? And that is consistent with whatever comes out of Stephen Miller's head, Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she is a loyalist, and people compromise. If you want to know why compromise has a bad word or bad name, or a bad engenders bad feelings, it's because there she is, Kristi Noem, the compromised Homeland Security Secretary. Any of the Trump sycophants are about the same level, although Noem really likes to flash it. She likes to, and she with the cowboy hat. You mentioned the cowboy hat.
Oh
You
man.
know, it's the Wild West, right? And she was in
Wherever she's got
Texas.
to be. If she was in Kentucky, she'd probably wear a coonskin cap, right?
Yeah.
It's really ridiculous at this point. It makes me want to vomit. It gives me such fits of nausea to look and see what these people are willing to do in the public eye. Okay.
Now, Dan, before we came on, you said that you were more, or actually, when we came on, you said you were more worried today than you were yesterday on the anniversary of the Day of Love, January 6th.
Yes, because the overreach and the level of rhetorical force that is coming out of the White House, and particularly out of the mouth of the president, as well as the Secretary of State, okay, uh, about Greenland, is even a greater expansion over and above what's already problematic in Venezuela. I have also heard rumors that they're interested in Ghana.
In Ghana.
In Ghana, yes.
Well, they said a couple things about Greenland. Greenland said, no, if you come in, it's the end of NATO. But NATO says, hey, we're going to stand up to whatever, Trump does. But
Well, no, Denmark said that it's the end of NATO, not Greenland.
Well, right.
Denmark said that.
Denmark? No, I think the Greenland, there was a Greenland official who also said it was the end of NATO.
Right.
He also said is tantamount to the end of NATO. But the point I wanted to make is that, you have all this talk about, is it going to be a military action like Venezuela? And Venezuela is sort of the model. But it really, there's this issue of purchase. We're going to purchase Greenland.
This is their attempt to clean it up so that they sound less like they're going to do a military invasion.
Well, but the purchase
cleanup act, man.
Why? Wait. But the purchase idea. I mean, as a well, this is better because we'll help everyone by buying it. This is sort of like when the U.S. bought the Philippines, but that came out after a war. But the purchase of the Philippines was, made me think, oh, this is another side of the imperial act, the nouveau imperialism of Donald Trump. We can purchase, or we can just, bully you into submission. And, they always talk about this term leverage. And, in business, leverage is when you have nothing, but you have leverage, you've got power.
Yeah.
Right?
This is so much. Okay, if you're going to cite 19th century American imperialist expansionism, right, that would include Cuba, Guam, right?
Well, look, that's in the cards, though. Cuba's in the cards.
And obviously the Philippines as well. And if you're going to cite the Philippines, you have to cite the history completely. The reality is that the United States took the Philippines by military conquest. That's the reality. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, why was there a purchase involved? Because the Roman Catholic Church, okay, particularly the American flank of the Roman Catholic Church, wanted to preserve, right, church rights, property rights in the Philippines. And so they effectively lobbied very heavily, right, that if you want Catholic votes in the next election, right, you're going to have to purchase the Philippines so that church property interests remain intact. That's the complete rendition of why that purchase occurred.
All right, but the purchase also came before the actual war. And the war, the conquest came after, once the Philippines started the first democracy in Asia. right?
No. What came was the offer of the purchase. Okay. What came was the offer of the purchase.
Oh, sorry
What
about that.
came, what came first was the offer of the purchase.
The offer, the purchase. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, but yeah, because the war started 1899, but the Philippines started their own democracy before the war,
Yeah, by a
right?
couple of months.
Yeah. But I mean, the point is, they were a sovereign nation. That
They
was
were asserting themselves as such, even though there were divisions in that,
yeah,
among the
yeah.
different provinces and regions.
Right. Well, look, it's it wasn't gonna happen. I mean, there was a reaction to what the United States was doing, but and they may not have been the strongest force. They lost in 2 years, but I don't know. I just think that it's an important. It's
Once again, they officially lost in 2 years simply because Roosevelt said it was over on July 4th, right?
right,
Of
right, right.
1903. So that was BS, right? Because the resistance, right, the
It
revolutionary
ended
resistance
earlier.
continued beyond
Oh,
that,
right, up in
right?
the hills. Yeah,
And that wasn't effectively stopped until around 1913, I would say.
yeah.
Okay,
Wait,
so
the
another 10, went another 10 years at least. There were also sporadic resistances all over the Philippines, but the important consideration was that the major resistances against
Mhm.
the American military continued into the next decade.
All right. Well, it's important for a couple of reasons. Number one, there was an uprising in the Philippines, not one to defeat the U.S., but there was resistance, and there was the force that that developed the first democracy in Asia. The
Yes.
question now in Venezuela is, will the people rise up? I don't really see that because of people at the same
No.
time they're being repressed. They're being repressed by their own people, and they're being
Yeah.
repressed by the collaborators, and maybe that's something that's similar to what happened in the Philippines after,
Yes.
in the
Yeah.
colonial times. The collaborators, the ones that got the special treatment, the the illustrados, right? They got to send
Including Aguinaldo, who is given credit for having mastered the resistance
right,
to the United States, but he capitulated.
right. Well,
And
that's the thing.
yeah,
He's talked about in the history books, but
yes,
a lot of people, the Philippine nationalists, think he's a weakling.
and he was.
Yeah,
he
I
was.
like the black tie he wore as a symbol
Right.
of his mourning. His
Yeah,
mourning.
the irony
But
is that he lived all the way into what, 67, 68, something like that.
right, yeah, he lived a long time. But the other thing about this is that it's interesting to go back to the Philippines because first colony, first imperialistic foray of the United States, but also we are going back to the 19th century with this whole Donroe doctrine, which I wrote about in my Inquirer column. I mean, Donroe. I mean, the Western Hemisphere is ours, and you know, I don't know if it was an original thought on the part of the Trumpers because I've read reports that said that Russia was willing to let Venezuela, like a trade, Venezuela for Ukraine, and maybe that set off some light bulbs. Ideas
Yeah.
to say, hey, yeah, okay, you get that, and China gets Taiwan, and the United States gets Venezuela and everyone else in the Western Hemisphere.
This is
Canada.
it shows you how backwards the thinking of Mr. Trump and Mr. Miller, who I consider to be Trump's actual brain. Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
they're thinking in terms of spheres of influence. Okay, which was a very commonly held kind of analytical position that people took in the post World War II period. Right, you had the socialist sphere of influence, and that was broken up between China and Russia. Right, and then you had the Western sphere of influence, and that's the way Trump sees the world now. That's the way Mr. Miller sees the world now. He stated so in at least 2 interviews over the weekend. Okay,
right. Well, he talks about Donroe. That's the Donroe doctrine. that's the Monroe Doctrine, 1823, uh, 19th century, an old-fashioned idea, but where was Europe back then versus where Europe is now? They weren't our allies in 1823.
Well, that's the
Not
whole
like
point
the
of the Monroe Doctrine. It was a
yeah
defensive doctrine, not an imperialist doctrine. Okay,
yeah
it was a defensive doctrine. What when you look at colonialism and imperialism, you can't just say they're reaching out over their borders, because the United States was still claiming territory to the west of the Mississippi. Remember that? Okay,
oh yeah
there was still a place called Texas that was being contested, right?
yeah
And then
in
the
1823,
discovery of
1830, yeah
gold in California was yet to happen, right?
yeah.
And so there was this whole process of imperialism that was going on from sea to shining sea. That was also part of the American expansion, right? Well, once they got that done, okay, then they reached out across the borders.
And that's why, I mean, this is the thing. In some ways, it's a good thing Venezuela happened, so at least we can talk about, well, what is this, Donroe, Monroe? I mean,
Oh God.
I don't think people have mentioned Venezuela more in the last. They mentioned Venezuela more in the last 5 days than they have in the last 5 years. I mean, I think the last time someone mentioned Venezuela maybe is in reference to Pablo Sandoval hitting 3 home runs for the Giants in a World Series. I mean, because he's from Venezuela. I
Yeah,
mean, really, and
they referenced, yeah,
America,
but they didn't reference Venezuela. They referenced the fact that he was a Venezuelan. Okay,
Venezuela. Oh
Different-
yeah, Venezuelan. Right,
yeah.
right. But the thing is, we're so the United States or people in this country, not just remarkably ignorant of geography, but ignorant of Latin America. I was up for a job in Latin America in the 90s, and I said, well, that's great. You're going to cover it. Let's see who else is covering it. I looked at everyone else. Hardly anyone, in the world briefs, one paragraph. That's where you get Latin American news. CNN wasn't as big back then either, and we don't get most of CNN, the Latin America coverage from CNN. So I mean, it was like we're Latin America does what it does, and it's like there's a void in people's knowledge here in the United States. So in some ways,
That's the fault of the general American media.
yeah,
If you know where to look, if you know, see one of the things that's great about the internet
yep,
today, right,
yeah,
is that you can find in general media. So when the larger media does not, remember when there was in print, right? When there were newspapers, right, and they were
yeah,
big important newspapers, okay, a lot of the facts coincided, right? You didn't see complete and total aversion to truth in any of the major papers.
yeah, little
Okay,
fragments
okay. So
everywhere.
now wait a minute, My point is, there was a world section.
Oh,
There was a whole section on the world, okay, and it covered all of the world. You could look. As a little kid, I was curious about these things, and I looked at it. I asked my parents, "What about Southeast Asia? What about Vietnam? What? Why is the United States interested in Laos, right, and Vietnam? That kind of thing." I was already looking at that. We were looking at El Salvador. We were talking about all kinds of problems happening in Nicaragua, Guatemala, El Salvador. All of that stuff was there.
Well,
okay. Now we don't have that. We don't have somebody that does a world section. Right? KQED had world affairs. Okay, and there was a certain professor from San Francisco State College, who ran world
Roger
affairs.
Boas used to do that show. Remember him?
Yeah, he was a supervisor, but he was nothing. The guy that really pioneered that show and did a great job was a professor of international relations at San Francisco State College. Okay. Oh God.
Because I know that show. I mentioned Boas only because when I was a high school kid, I interned there at the old KQED, and I interned on the newsroom show where Mel Wax was the
Yeah,
anchor. Mel
great
Wack
guy.
and Joe Russin. Joe Russin was the big news director producer. So anyway, and there were a lot of great people in that newsroom program, and I just remember that international show would come on. Ed Radenzel used to be one of the editors who I think they were all Chronicle reporter editor strikers, and so that's how they all got to KQED. Anyway, look, your point well taken about the failure of the media. One footnote: the Pittsburgh Post Gazette going out of business
So
in
here we
May,
go.
and and this is typical family business. Kids don't want to be, want to get into some other thing with their money. They don't want to get into newspapers. The family tradition dies in Pittsburgh, and it's sad. The Pittsburgh Post Gazette, that was one of the papers, one of the good ones. Then you'd say, hey, if you're working in the newspaper realm, you say, yeah, that's a great place to work, and then you want to go up to maybe the Times or the Washington Post, or maybe the L.A. Times in California. Now all the papers are struggling. So it said they were ceasing operations. I didn't read beyond the headlines, so I don't know if they're just going to be, no print, but still have an online presence. But another one bites the dust.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's sad. I mean, this
it's
is a
really
big
sad.
paper, morning
It's
paper,
really
not an
sad.
afternoon paper.
Yeah. Now, all of this stuff is predictable in the sense that we should understand that print media has been dying for 30 years.
Oh yeah, yeah,
It started with advertising, losing advertising because subscription uh, revenue wasn't enough to keep the newspapers alive. And so
yeah,
once advertising shifted to television and then really badly with the internet,
yeah,
it got really bad. Expansion
yeah.
of television coverage, right, and cable network coverage.
Mhm.
All of this stuff contributed to the demise of print media. Now, once again, there is available information, and there's excellent journalism. The problem is that you have to know where it is, and you have to be willing to suffer the
Sick it.
consequences of doing comparative, right? Comparative
But
research.
people want the one-stop shop, and there is no
Yes,
one-stop shop.
yes. I
You
called it,
gotta.
back in the day, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, I called it microwave culture. People
Yeah,
wanted instant gratification,
yeah, yeah.
and, Polaroid, I called it Polaroid gratification, etc.
Polaroid. Yeah,
Yep,
instant. Yeah, and now
instant.
Polaroids are out. Polaroids are
Oh,
done.
yeah,
Well, are
yeah.
they coming?
Yeah,
Are they
yeah,
coming back? Sometimes
sure.
they're making the. Well, all right.
Yeah,
So,
there are those kinds of pictures that you don't want people seeing
yeah,
that you can take with Polaroids, and you can
and then
keep
only you
them,
see them. Yeah,
and they're not anywhere on the internet. You don't have to worry about getting revenge porn rendered on
yeah.
you. There it is.
Wow.
So
All right.
there it is.
The
My
Professor Dan
collection is
Polaroids.
protected. My collection is in a safe. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Concrete. Yeah. Foundation. Hey, listen.
Well, my wife calls it the bunker.
The bunker. Hey, let's go back to that ICE shooting because that is the story that pushed Venezuela out. I thought, people would be talking about Greenland or, that, they seized that tanker that might belong to Russia, might belong to Uganda, to Ghana, but, or Guyana rather. And now it's, I guess it's our oil. There's also the idea that the United States is going to get oil from Venezuela, something like maybe a 12th of their yearly reserves or their output, because that's the deal that Trump said was struck. It's 50 million barrels, which sounds
Oh
more
man!
than it
Again,
is.
again. The news coverage is terrible on this. Okay, the most that they've said is that Venezuelan oil is heavy crude, right, and that it is more difficult to refine. That's all correct. That's all correct. There's one more thing, right? That once again, my international relations background, right, that in the 1960s and 70s, the reason Venezuelan oil wasn't that attractive and that there were only one or two major oil companies in Venezuela, right? One of them, Standard Oil, right? And
Yeah.
Standard Oil kept on suing Venezuela, and
Right.
Venezuela kept on suing Standard Oil back all during that period, right? And so, what my research showed was the reason other companies didn't want to refine Venezuelan oil had high sulfuric content. So, not only was it called heavy crude, it was called heavy sour crude because of its high sulfur content. That made it even worse to refine.
It wasn't the light sweet crude that everyone likes.
Yes, the
The
stuff
light
that
sweet
you
crude.
could use as a substitute for olive oil if you wanted to fry your eggs.
Yeah. I like the light sweet crude. I like
Oh
the
yeah.
light sweet crude. Not the
Well,
heavy crude, just like in through my heart. I don't want that heavy blood. I want the light blood.
yeah,
The light.
he wants
I
the
want
heavy
light
crude.
blood.
He doesn't want the heavy crude blood. He's already too crude.
Yeah. Well, I just think he's out there spewing that out. Hey, we're gonna get this. We're gonna get this oil.
Oh man.
But no, but they report what he says.
Oh man.
But they report what Trump says. But they do go to industry analysts, and the industry analysts say, well, it could cost us
Yeah,
billions
that's
of dollars
right.
to get this
Well,
out.
that's as far as they gone though. That's as far. Once again, they've only taken a half a step out. Okay, go a full step out, and what you will discover is if they brought 30 billion gallons more, right, of crude out onto the market, what would that do to the market? It would reduce the overall value and price of oil, would it not? And is that what the manufacturers of oil want? Is they want a lower price? I know. Let's bring the price of oil down below $60 a gallon. 60 was a bottom for them. They tell that's horrible for them. Okay, and 30, bring on 30 billion. The estimate that I've seen is it would bring it down immediately to $54 a gallon. Are the oil manufacturers going to be happy to join on that?
So
they're going to jump on that train, right?
You're going to well, look, this is all about money for the cronies. You also hear that's why they got to talk. They got to talk about, well, we're going to give tax credits if you come in and spend billions. Tax credits that will get reversed.
I don't know if they're going to meet at Mar-a-Lago or the White House. Probably Mar-a-Lago because it's warmer. And they're going to go down there and they're going to meet. And all of the oil manufacturers are going to have representatives that they're going to meet down there. I'm going to tell you right now, there is not going to be a really earth-shattering outcome coming out of that. Okay?
Hey, wait a minute. This is blood for oil. This is blood for oil. This is the oil we're giving you.
Yeah, they already get.
Right.
They already get. Tax
all right. So look, I'm Trump. You gotta bail me out here. I got the guy. I got the guy on drugs. I got the guy on drug charges. You got to help me out on the oil thing. You're not gonna leave. You're cronies. You're not gonna leave me stranded.
Okay. Okay. What on the drugs? Colombia. 70% of the cocaine that reaches the United States comes out of Colombia. It travels through Venezuela and partially through Mexico, but it's produced in Colombia.
In Colombia, right. Okay. Well, that's the whole Medellin thing. But as far as the drugs, the drug thing, you knew that was a lie. Because
especially when they said it was fentanyl.
Yeah, fentanyl was a lie. Cocaine. There are more drugs coming out of Honduras and Guatemala. And what do?
Yes.
They just, pardoned the Honduras guy. So this is like, we're going to let Al Capone go, but we're going to, we're going to go after his junior. We're going to go after his valet, his Filipino valet. We're going to get his Filipino valet. And that's what going after Maduro's like. but I look. I'm trying to make sense of it, and the more we talk about Venezuela and all the oil and the drugs, it gives more credence to my Venezuelan beauty queen theory that Trump is doing it because he's jealous. He's jealous that Venezuela has twice the number of Big Four beauty pageant queen winners, right?
Right. Right.
Almost double.
Okay.
He's
All right.
that
Can we
and
get off
that
of this now because it's a waste of, you know. Yeah, my point has been that the media isn't covering any of this stuff worth the crap. Okay, that's the problem. There's a lack of depth. Okay, so
Yeah.
why don't we move on to something else that we can show they have a lack of depth on?
Well, I'm just saying it's ridiculous. You know, when Trump says he's going to run things and he says nothing, there's
Well,
you look at
he's going to leave the entire regime alone. Everybody's still there.
Right. Well, I'm just saying. It's not a waste of time to talk about the ridiculousness of this thing.
Yes,
that he's
it is.
done.
Yes, it is a waste of time.
Well, why is that?
Because nothing is going to change. Okay, the only thing that's going to happen is they're going to have their same nationalist motive, and the colectivos. You know who the colectivos are? Okay, it's one of the gangs, right? It's one of the very mobile gangs that is known for being motorcycle heavy, right? That's what they're heavy into, and they're street enforcers. So people are not going to come out. There's not going to be a wonderful demonstration headed up by people carrying a statue of the Virgin Mary through the streets.
No. I pointed that out. I pointed that out, that there's no people power. You know, you can go, you can compare to the Philippines, but there's no people power coming out of this because the people are still being repressed.
And then how did people power turn out after 3 years?
Well, I mean, ask Joseph Estrada's family. Ask the Aquino family. I mean, look, you leave democracy.
You're leaving out the president of the former president of the Philippines that's in The Hague.
Oh well, no, he came after though. He came. I mean, initially after people power, it was Estrada and Macapagal and all those.
Fidel, you're leaving out Fidel, my granduncle.
Yeah, Fidel, and he was, he was more stable than the others.
He wasn't bad.
He was more stable than the others.
Yeah.
But I left out Duterte because he comes way after, and I don't link him to people power at all. He's the repressor again. He returned to the repression.
Well, but that's my point. My point is that people power looked really good, even though I got laughed at by my Latino friends who said, "You call that a revolution?" Anyway.
Well,
so real. Did the structure of neo-colonial attitude by the upper class in the Philippines, did that structure continue after Marcos? And the answer is obviously yes. Okay. What's going to change? What's going to change in Venezuela? I don't know. But it ain't going to be anything that comes out of Trump's face.
But if the beauty queens change, if they immigrate, that would be a plus.
This ain't funny anymore. That ain't funny anymore. Although you're right. I mean, factually, you're correct, right? I mean,
they'll be jumping. I'm just pointing out this is the ridiculousness, the absurdity of the enterprise. To point out that if there was something positive to take out, but you read chapter and verse from whatever, some UN white paper, we get to the same place.
Can we talk about something that actually affects people's lives on a day-to-day basis that has potential for destroying?
Before we leave this, Venezuela is important though, because if Trump is able to do what he wants, and people still find a warmth in their heart for Trump, and they just allow him to do what. I mean, this isn't about just American nouveau imperialism. It really is, especially when you consider the events of today in Minneapolis. This really is a solidification of really
Look,
American
look,
fascism.
Venezuela only matters because it's a demonstration of what more he could do. Okay? So, what makes Venezuela important is not Venezuela. What makes Venezuela important is the lack of appropriate action by Congress as a checking mechanism
Well, of
against
course,
Trump.
that's
Okay?
part of
No,
it.
no, it's not, of
But,
course. You have to
but
say that. You
well,
have to
but
say
that's
that's
why.
where the
Well,
issues
wait,
are.
that's why people have to be upset. People have to be upset to
No,
do so. Yes, it's Well, look, it definitely is Congress. It's a representative government. I mean, it stands to
it's
reason
supposed to
when
be.
we. Well, it stands to reason that when we first talked about this a couple days ago, it's like where's the approval of Congress? Congress just got briefed last night. Congress, another briefing today. So I don't know what sort
That's
of
not going to
bills are in
matter
the
either.
works.
That's not going to matter either because each side is going to come out with the same talking points that they had the day before. Okay. Maybe little embellishments here and there, but that's all. Okay. So
All right, so then
the reality is the possibility of real change can't happen until November of this year. The possibility.
another election.
Yes, the
Yeah.
possibility. That's a mere possibility. Even
Well,
if, like most people feel, the Democrats take back the lower house. The question is, what the hell is a Democrat's plan? What is the plan, right? The closest thing we've got to a plan are things that were said by Bernie Sanders 10 years ago, okay?
yeah,
The
yeah.
closest thing that looks like a plan are things that are consistent with the kind of vision that Mamdani, the new mayor of New York, has about the city of New York, okay? That can't be applied nationally, okay? That cannot be applied nationally. But the notion of looking at local needs and addressing local needs at the municipal and state levels, that can be applied. Okay. But we don't have people thinking that way. They have to be thinking both in terms of global circumstance, right? And
Right.
understanding what's going on there as well as local circumstance.
And
We are not doing that.
I agree with you there, but I think what happens is people see here Venezuela. I'm not saying that you got to mire yourself in Venezuela, but you at least have to understand it, and you can't ignore it. And I think that's what happens. People just ignore this as another world story that they can, bypass. That they can they can turn the channel. I say that it's time to pay attention because this is a model for future action by the bully Trump. And if you want to see, people have responded to the things that I've done here, and they've said, well, this is might makes right, and people know when you say might makes right,
Yeah, and
that
who said
is
that? Who said that first? Was it Rubio? Okay. Was it Homeland
well,
Security? Nah, it was Stephen Miller. And last week, when I said it's Stephen Miller, right?
yeah.
I thought he was only really an authority around immigration. And I said,
Well,
no, man.
well,
Everybody else is
immigration,
a figurehead. Everybody else
bleeds
is a
in.
figurehead.
Yeah,
Okay.
immigration
Miller
bleeds in.
is Trump's brain. All right.
Yeah.
Miller is Trump's
Well,
brain. There it is. So real simple.
unfortunately, I mean, immigration is his lane, but it quickly expands. Immigration from where? What country? How do you move these people back to those countries? And then, but I'm not. I don't doubt that he's probably the most
Where
vocal
do
in
you
that
think? Where
room.
do you think? Where do you think the reinforcement of Mr. Trump's shithole countries
Oh,
attitude?
that comes from
You-
but it comes out of an immigration sense of the other people, other countries, where they are economically. What?
know,
Where's it come from?
comes from the old notion of third worldism and the anti-third world concept. That's where it comes from. It comes from
Well,
Steve Bannon, right? Remember him and his perspective, okay? All right, and that's
I
completely
mean, look,
consistent with Stephen Miller.
the third worldism. I know he brought it up. He brought it up in his rhetoric, but I mean, for people who aren't familiar with that, it comes from it comes out of the immigration. It comes out of the the anti-immigration sentiment, and then you look at, well, what countries are these people coming from? We want the good countries, right? They've said as much. If you want to get one in, we want you from we want to take the talent from the good countries. And if you have what, $5 million, he says, the gold card. So I mean, I'm just talking about a more practical aspect. Maybe there is a broader theme, third worldism, as you put it, but it's basically xenophobic and racism.
It's anti-third worldism is what it is. And I mentioned earlier the three spheres, right? Okay, you got two commie spheres, right? Chinese and Russian, and then the United States and the Western world. That's the way that they're analyzing this thing. And then they take it back and start saying force is righteousness, right? Essentially Miller is coming out and saying, look, what's the purpose of having the most powerful military in the freaking world if you can't use it? Okay,
well,
that's essentially what he's doing, right? So why do we need to rationalize about what's happening in Venezuela? What you need to rationalize is what the hell is Congress going to do to stop this guy from doing that stuff? Okay?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is why people have to pay attention, because what we have at January 6th, with Donald Trump admiring the writers on January 6th watching Fox, we have the same thing admiring his military going to Venezuela to get Maduro. It's the same thing on an international level.
Okay,
that's all I'm saying. But people have to pay attention, and they're not. They're saying Venezuela, over their heads. They don't care. Where is it?
Greenland's next. Greenland's next. So, okay, I'm really curious to see. Okay, so obviously Guyana is not. They're not going to be jumping up and firing missiles right at the U.S.
I mean, but they will bully.
Russia. There is Russia, right? Oh,
they will bully anyone.
A fake rationale. He's saying, "Oh man, there's Chinese ships surrounding Greenland." There isn't one Chinese. They're way over on the other side. The passage that they use is the Northern Passage, man. Doesn't come to Greenland. It's just really insane. This guy.
But this is the thing. The thing that makes it crazy is that we could do anything we want in Greenland now.
Yes,
I mean we could do anything security-wise.
Come and negotiate. That's what they've been saying. Come and negotiate. You're not going to take it over. We can do
anything. So Greenland doesn't make sense, and then it just. But if it's a twofer, he gets rid of NATO. That's why I think he wants to do it.
Once again, it makes sense if you take on the value perspective that Trump and Miller have, and that is you just take stuff, you prove, right, along with Mr. Secretary of Defense. I refuse to call him the Secretary of War. Okay, when maybe I should call him the Secretary of
That's his proper title.
Yeah,
that's his proper title.
Yeah, we're about war. We're about war. My department is about war.
Now he's got war. Now there's war.
With what's coming out of Miller's face, right? Miller is saying you can't use it. You got to demonstrate your force. Okay, that's what you have to do. So let's no one's going to tangle with us. That's what you got to worry about. Okay, can we get to something that actually affects people's day-to-day lives now?
Well, all right, but I'm just saying, Venezuela does affect their lives. It will affect their lives because.
Show me how it does.
Well, it's our president. He's doing more irrational, crazy things. If you're just waiting,
that affects what? Does that affect the prices of what they're paying at the stores?
Look. No. Don't give me that. Don't give me that. Because I know that this is a big distraction from the other things that are important. But it doesn't mean you have to ignore Venezuela. It doesn't mean
I'm not saying to ignore it. I'm
just saying it affects your life because this is our president. This is our government acting. And I'm saying, if everyone is a low-level interest, person in the news and in politics, and I'll just vote for some guy who's going to, maybe he'll fight for us, maybe he'll raise our price, because that was the rationale of a lot of voters, the low-interest voters who I'll just show up for the general. You got to pay attention to this all the time, but this is more important because this is about national security. It's about national security, and if you really are interested in law and order, what the president does, it's important. That's all. I mean, look. I don't mind talking about what you want to talk about, but I don't like you dismissing the fact that this is important for people to think about. That's all. It's not a waste of time. It isn't a waste. It's not a waste of time to mention Venezuela, but it is
No,
a waste of time
and
to mention
come
it's
on.
a well, if you write a letter to your congressman, if you call your congressman or if you think about people who might do something.
Yeah, well,
I
yeah,
don't know. I don't know who stands up to
okay,
him
we
at
can
this
all
point.
we can all do that, right? But it's going to still be the majority blue states that are in the minority, right? And
Yeah.
and it's still going to be the majority of red states that practice the worst kinds of gerrymandering, okay? And so
Right.
and you understand the reasons why. And so
Yeah.
the likelihood that Congress is going to do anything simply because people write that they're angry, right, is very low. Okay,
Yeah.
what
Well,
no,
it
it's
can,
really low. They
but
got to get you got to get out on the street, right? And you have
yeah.
to confront those guys that you know are still supporting Trump. Are
Well,
they
then you.
until they do that? Until those people do that, we're just being once again distracted by something. What's important about Venezuela, right, is that it might be a provocation. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that it's a waste of time to just keep talking about Venezuela. You got to talk about the consequences coming from the reaction from the Russians and everybody else in the
Well,
world.
yeah.
That's
Well,
what you got to worry about.
that's the thing. How about our allies? And then when I found out that Great Britain was working, with the United States and seizing that tanker, well, complicated because the tanker is, maybe they're doing black market oil and that kind of
And
thing.
England wants revenge for Shakespearean, you know,
Yeah,
treatment
it's just
of
that
the Danes.
the thing is, this is our world. But maybe it will foster the kind of isolationism that the MAGA people really want. Because now they see us in these forever wars. Now they see us in Venezuela. Oh, we wanted to be isolationists. We
Yeah,
wanted to. Why are we doing this? I
this
don't
is
want to
not what we
learn.
wanted. This is
Yeah.
not what we wanted. We wanted America first, and by
Yeah.
America first, we meant, you know, do they know Hoover? Did they know about Hoover and his wonderful presidency? Right? Okay.
No, I mean, yeah. I mean, look, this is the thing about America First, and this is why maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene was the smartest MAGA person around. Maybe she's
You
it.
know, she
I mean,
sure
I
looked.
hate to say that, but maybe she's the hope. I
Well,
just
before
I mean,
way before her, there was a person called Liz Cheney.
oh
You
yeah,
know,
well I like
and
Liz Cheney too,
and, and
but
then what people said was, one of the reasons that the Democrats themselves are saying one of the reasons that Harris lost was because she embraced Liz Cheney, right?
yeah. Well, here's the thing about all those people, all the never Trumpers, and they all become Democrats. Although Liz Cheney isn't technically a Democrat,
No, she. No.
but George Conway is a Democrat now,
Oh
and
yeah.
he's running for Congress.
Yeah,
in
but you
that
can't
Upper
trust
East Side.
him. You can't trust him because he's half one of those guys from shithole countries.
Well, yeah, from the Philippines. His mother was a chemist.
Yeah.
His background. So he comes from the educated Philippine, and
You're once again you're ignoring the relationship between his family and the development of the former naval base in the
I don't know.
Philippines.
Was there a connection there? I don't know.
Oh yeah. You just look up Daddy's real estate holdings, and then you'll see.
Oh,
There you-
I didn't know that. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
I know he's wealthy. I know you gave $1 million to the Democrats
right.
last year, but he's done other things. So my point is, he's one of those who's come over and he's trying to take advantage of this politically.
He's
But
very strong. His arguments are very strong. You can't
Yeah.
forget the fact that he's a trial attorney. He's very good, and he was one of the first people to come out and embrace the psychiatric
Right. Yeah.
evaluations of Trump.
Right.
And he's been right. And he's been right. He's been very predictive of Trump's behavior. And the only other person that has been more predictive is probably Trump's niece. Okay,
Yeah. It was,
so
yeah.
so there's
The
all that going
psychological.
on. There's all of the MRIs. There's aspirin and in massive quantities.
Right.
It's going to turn into
But
a bleeder.
look, I only point out, you know, his Conway's background is that he comes from an elite background,
Yeah,
a rich
yeah,
background, a
yeah.
wealthy background. Those are the kind of people I met at Harvard. Whereas, I'm like this kid from the Mission District, and my father a fry cook, and these are guys who came with wealth, and they were already at third base, and I
Yeah.
get my scholarship, and I'm standing with my bat at home plate, saying, pitch it to me, and they don't pitch it, and they don't pitch, and he's standing at third base already, trying to steal home. So that's his Filipino experience and my Filipino experience.
Yeah.
I didn't know exactly how wealthy he was. I thought he just got his wealth from just being a corporate lawyer,
Yeah.
and maybe got some money from Kellyanne
And I'm sure
Conway.
that's true. I'm
Yeah,
sure he's very much, if not a completely self-made man, a self-made American, right?
yeah,
Even
but
though he may be from an elite family in the Philippines, but anyway,
yeah. Anyway,
uh,
I met him once. Semi nice guy. I think it's going to be interesting. He puts his hat in the ring. People know him from television. He's got a shot, and he could be the first half Filipino guy. Well, he would be. He wouldn't be the first half Filipino guy in Congress, because that would be Bobby Scott out of
mhm.
Virginia. So he
he's
might be.
he's Filipino mestizo. That's all there is. But
Yeah.
his origin is not questionable in terms, because there's a whole lot of people who are Filipino mestizo, right?
Yeah.
The whole
Yeah.
the vast majority of the so-called expat generation, the expatriates, right,
Yeah. Yeah.
are mestizo.
Yeah.
A whole lot of people that you and I both know
Yeah. Yeah. I
fairly
know.
closely and
I
personally.
know. All right, so let's get to. Yeah, I know you wanted to raise this postmark issue,
Yeah, damn it.
and this affects people's lives. So, what is the postmark? It's a bill that passed, a new law. What happened?
Yeah, it's a policy that's based on part of the BBB, right? The Big Beautiful Bill, right? And what the policy says is that, and this is challengeable. So what I'm surprised about is that I haven't seen any lawsuits by the states yet based on this postmark ruling.
Are you,
And now let me describe how it
yeah,
works, right?
explain it. Yeah.
Now postmarks won't get done. I think you can ask for it. I think if you bring the thing to a post office and you say you want this piece of mail postmarked, or you pay the extra registration and all that, then you'll get an accurate postmark on it, right?
Hmm.
But if you just drop it in the mailbox, right, and it goes off to processing, the postmark will not. It will not be postmarked. That piece will not be postmarked until 2 or 3 days down the line, maybe even longer, because it has to get to a major center, right, where it'll get automatically postmarked where the big machines go. Now, once again, when I was a kid, one of the jobs that I had was working at the post office. Okay,
You're a
and
post office Filipino.
yes, among many, and I worked in the mail sorting area, like most of us as clerks, and we got machines, man, that could sort like hell, that could sort fast as hell. Okay, and so I was amazed by how fast these things sorted, right? And so all of the big companies like PG&E, Standard Oil, right, Shell, all of the big companies that were sending out bills to all of their customers, right, would send sorted mail, and it's mail that comes in bulk packs, right, in these huge 4 foot long carriers, right, cases. And so we had to dump those cases onto mail sorters tables, or their sorting dock, so that they could work it out, and distribute the mail. And that was, I got hired to do that, and it was a whole hell of a lot better than sitting at a desk at the court at a sorting table and doing that. Okay.
All right. So, tell me
Yeah.
about postmark now. So,
And
if people,
so those postmarks, those machines were capable of postmarking. Well, we're talking about 1970, man, 1971. Okay, we're talking about over 50 years ago that these things were capable. Well, almost 50 years ago that these things were capable of doing that. Okay,
so what is
so now saying that, well, it's got to go to a central facility and it's not going to get postmarked until it gets there. What's the effect? People who are sensitive to postmarking because they get medication by mail. People who are paying their bills, right, for whatever, for utilities, right, for once again medications.
So you get.
Excuse
So
me,
there's
I had to cough.
possibility. Bless you. So
And okay, here's the biggie. Here's the biggie.
Yeah.
Postmarking for mail-in ballots.
Oh, but
Postmarking for mail-in ballots. So, could people not have their ballot counted? Oh man.
Connecting. Okay. So what about the ballots? Some of the ballots.
If people don't turn their ballot in a couple of days earlier than the deadline, right, their ballot may not be counted.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. So
Okay?
this is an
Now,
attack at mail-in ballots.
Yes, and California in 2024, 81% of ballots counted were mail-in or ballot drop box ballots.
So they're really this is a national law though, right?
Yes.
And but they're targeting blue states, or it impacts blue states, specifically California, more because of our voting patterns.
The states that have a majority of their ballot returns by mail or drop box, right, are 9 of 10 of them are Western states. Only one state, right, which is a red state. Well, I'm sorry, 9 out of 10 of them are blue states.
Yeah.
Only one state that is red state, Utah, right, has had a majority mail-in ballots. Okay, so the entire West Coast, right? So California, Oregon, Washington, all mail-in ballots. Oregon and Washington have 100% mail-in. 100% mail-in. Okay, so who the hell is going to be the targets of this kind of measure, which is getting away surreptitiously because we forgot to mention it the last 2 weeks? Okay, I'm going to keep mentioning this, and I'm going to keep sending it out there and telling people, look, man, you got to get your stuff in early. No more of this, kibitzing around and hanging out until the last minute.
Yeah, okay? Well, yeah, there's a way to deal with it by voting, almost immediately.
Get it in
you don't
early,
have to worry about this.
But you mark your calendar and you say 5 days before the actual deadline, right? You're gonna have that thing in.
Well, or like you said, why aren't state AGs considering?
There should be a lawsuit. There should be a major lawsuit, man. That's clearly unconstitutional. This is unconstitutional, man. You're interfering. There's a Voting Rights Act, right? Remember that?
There's.
I know they've gutted Section 5, and they're trying to gut Section 2, right?
Yeah, but also, but this is, I see, it's not as obvious on vote by mail because they're trying to screw up all the different ways to vote by mail specifically, but they want to and driver's license voting and all that kind of thing. Yeah. So they're just attacking voting, period, for people who like to do vote in more by in other ways than just going to the voting booth. But I think the corporates are making out on this. Late fees, right? It's a tax. The tax on the people. You get $35 late fee on a bill. You got to, and a lot. If you call and argue, you can get a waiver like once or twice. But if it's chronic, this is a big win for corporations. So I hope there's a soup. I hope someone, the state AG, but there are other things happening, like the National Guard thing, and other suits that the state AGs are working on. But this is one. This is a biggie, especially when it impacts voting.
That's it. That's it. I agree with you. They're going to try every method they can. I mean, this all started with their wonderful experiments with gerrymandering, and they're very successful.
Oh yeah.
So now they've seen challenges against gerrymandering. Okay,
Mhm.
California is one such state. Okay, and then they
Yeah.
attempted to use that against California by Texas doing another gerrymander that would gain them another 5 seats. So, right, Mr. Newsom was one of the few that came forward and said, "Okay, you want to play that? Let's play." Okay. Now,
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to work. I hear a lot of people being critical of Mr. Newsom for other reasons, right? Like, too much taxation. He's going to he's too much in favor of like uh, renewable energy which costs more initially, right, as an investment. Too much gas tax, right? And favoritism towards EVs when EVs also have an initial cost problem, right?
Yeah.
And also the batteries, the lithium batteries, once they're gone, uh, goes onto the trash
The,
heap and
the
becomes
dump.
yes,
Yeah.
becomes an ecological threat. So there's all that.
Yeah.
There's
All
all
right.
that.
So there's one thing we haven't mentioned in our remaining time, and that is the health policy that RFK Jr.
Oh no.
announced.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think this is the full employment heart attack act for doctors.
God.
This is the
Oh
full
man.
employment for all cardiologists. Hey, you're going to be busy. You're going to be busy. People are going to be pumping up that beef tallow and the cooking with butter. Beef tallow, different from lard. Lard is from pork. Beef tallow is from cattle, beef. It's maybe a higher fat. I don't know. It's so anti-vegan. This the food chart
Yeah, it is. I
is
mean,
that
there's
he
no
says
question. There's
red
no question.
meat, beef tallow, whole milk. Whole. When was the last time you drank whole milk?
On purpose.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that the room noticed you had whole milk if you're Asian. I'm sure you know. So,
No, I in all of my endeavors in the martial arts, one of my greatest achievements
yeah.
was the ability to do SBDs.
SVDs.
Yeah, silent but deadly.
Oh,
Mhm.
oh. Silent.
Yeah,
Well,
uh, noiseless discharges.
yeah, I just think that it's kind of discriminatory. He says, "Hey, dairy, okay." He doesn't mention the Asians.
Yeah,
Doesn't
yeah.
mention Asians' propensity to flatulence, or also alcohol. Drink as much alcohol. Doesn't mention the flushing for Asians. So I
Yeah,
don't know. I just think the headline of
yeah.
the Times.
You're saying the Happy Buddha effect. That's what
Well, yeah, the
the Happy
glow.
Buddha effect.
Kennedy flips fast food or food pyramid to emphasize red meat and whole milk. Although he kind of balances. He says eat your fruits and vegetables. Eat whole foods. Don't take your vitamins in your food. And that makes sense instead of supplements. But beef tallow. I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know. Beef
yeah,
tallow.
yeah.
So
So go get your burgers at Mickey D's, and
yeah,
yeah,
I think I think a lot of the companies are French frying in beef tallow because of
that's just gonna say,
this.
yeah.
Or
And you know
actually,
what? And people are gonna say, you know what? It tastes better.
yeah, I know they'll say, "Oh, beef tallow, oh, yeah. It's that salt." Well, actually, salt's bad too. High blood pressure.
Sure.
I'm just telling you, this is the Full Employment Act for American cardiologists. That's what this is
I think
because
I
they
think
they
it's
will be
probably
busy.
worse than this. You don't think it's gonna oncologists aren't going to get some
Oh
benefit.
yeah, this is probably going to be yeah. But when you speak specifically about fats, saying that there's some good fats, eat all the fats. Well, there's your clogged arteries, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You know, and that's basically a genetic thing with my family that we come pre-clogged. You
yeah,
know,
yeah. That's true. That's true.
and
My
so
family too. My family too.
yeah,
My mother's side more than my father's.
yeah. So you got to Filipinos have to watch out for that. All right, so that was the other big news today, and I don't know, Dan. I thought January 6th. Do you think everyone kind of? Do you think we appropriately or do you think we significantly honored the day,
Commemorated the
commemorated?
importance. Yeah, I don't think so. I think it. I think it. The media tried to do that. The media tried to
Yeah,
pay attention to the seriousness of that event and what it meant then and what it means now. Especially, what they did was they bracketed video, old video, right? But it wasn't the most violent video. I mean, it was the crowd video, but it didn't show officers being crushed. Okay,
yeah,
and being threatened with their lives and all that. They didn't show enough of that, but they should have bracketed uh, the demonstrations by people who are now saying we want the Department of Justice to go even further and find out who among the FBI were complicit in setting us up.
oh well, that
you
that
know,
that that would be. But the
they
the,
set
the
us
part.
up. It was entrapment, man. It was
Yeah,
entrapment, right? They
hey, the,
set
the
us
part.
up. They encouraged me to beat the hell out of 8 different officers. That's what they did.
I know, but look, they were all pardoned by Trump, and one of those pardons said, "I'm guilty. I'm sorry." I mean,
Yeah,
she was
one,
pretty good.
one.
All it takes is one to let people know that there's one good soul in
I,
America.
I'm not going to accept the, uh, you know, commutation, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's courage. That's courage to say. I mean, but
Yeah, it's
uh,
courage because she's going to get hacked by some of the other
right.
1600, right?
I mean, Trump isn't a fall on your sword kind of guy. He's a, fall on your own sword. I'll
Yeah,
smile over you. He's
yeah. Well, he's got a small sword, so it
yeah.
wouldn't be a
Well,
big deal.
that's what I hear. Hey, so Dan, yeah, it was tough yesterday and
Uh,
January 6th, and now we got the 7th. And just back to the ICE shooting, because uh, we're
I
going
don't
to
know. Has
hear.
anything new showed up? I don't.
Well, I don't know. I think we talked about this at the beginning, and I want to make sure people know that yeah, we mentioned it at the beginning, and we talked about the video, and there are a few. Let's see, a few updates are that. Let's see, state and local officials demanded an end to the Trump administration's immigration crackdown after a federal officer shot and killed a 37-year-old woman in Minneapolis on Wednesday. Details remain in dispute, with President Trump saying the agents had acted in self-defense on social media. We read that, saying it was the radical left. While state and local officials describe federal accounts of the shooting with terms like propaganda and garbage. And McLaughlin, the Department of Homeland Security spokesperson, said that an agent had opened fire after a woman, quote, weaponized her vehicle. And then Kristi Noem described the incident as an act of domestic terrorism. So I think that we are going to be talking about this a long time because I think this is one of the things that doesn't go away.
Yeah.
I think Venezuela, I think people have moved on. They say, well, what can we do? But there's actually a lot you can do. I mean, I've often wondered this myself, aside from going to your congressperson or, it boils down to your vote. Your vote is the most powerful thing. When do you vote next? Right.
Yeah,
November.
and not only, and people got to talk about these things to everybody around them, even if you think that the people have differences of opinion, as long as they're not hardline MAGA. I wouldn't suggest that you waste your time trying to convince somebody that's hardline MAGA, but you need to talk to everybody else
See,
even if they have differences of opinion, and settle on the facts. Let's look at what's really happening here, and make a decision on how we're going to deal with this. Okay, and you can
yeah,
do it on a neighborhood basis, right?
yeah. This is what I think is important. Uh, I mean, like when I do my show and I talk about Trump derangement syndrome, I talk about what keeps people from talking about this stuff to each other. And I think what's going to happen, that I think people don't go to No Kings rallies now because they think violence is going to happen, and usually they think, oh, you don't know who's going to be there in the crowd. But now when ICE is shooting at people, I think that's another level of concern, and it's a real concern because we see how things get out of hand to this point where they feel free to shoot. And that was an attitude when they were in LA. It was an attitude when they were in Chicago. It was an attitude when they were in every city.
Well,
And this,
the attitude was not necessarily. Yeah, there was the attitude was of violence, the willingness to commit violence, and so
yeah,
the likelihood that violence, including right the use of guns, was inevitable. It was going to happen sooner or later. Okay.
yeah,
Now, one of the things that upsets me about the way the media is dealing with this is, political commentators and politicians themselves, is that even on the left, they're saying, well, how are these people trained? Are they properly trained so that they're not likely to use violence of this sort and that gun violence should only be used as an absolutely last alternative, right? And so, what the hell are you talking about, man? I mean,
yeah.
it's not just about training. It is about who gets hired, right?
Yeah. Well, they rushed the training. They rushed the training. They had to ramp up and get all those people.
Well,
so,
yeah. How are these people being vetted even before training? Okay,
not well.
We got high unemployment. We have high unemployment, right? And a lot of that unemployment is men, and a lot of the people who are going to apply for these jobs are those people who also are unemployed. I want to see the stats on that. I want to see, where these people come from.
I bet you it's the guys who worked TSA who wanted a raise, so they traded TSA to ICE.
Jeez.
That's my theory. Another theory.
What scares me is that it's unemployed or low employment veterans,
or maybe ex-cops, retired cops, kicked out cops.
Yeah, kicked out cops. There's enough of that going on.
People who know guns. So military, yeah. It's people say, look, this is my last roundup. I got to go out there. I mean, it's sad.
I don't know. Beyond the masks and the movement, a lot of the people look younger to me. I mean, they were quite young. There were also young women involved, right? Mm-hmm. There were a lot of ponytails sticking out through caps, among the people who were performing the arrest. Or forming lines, right? Sometimes defensive lines, sometimes offensive lines. But it'd be really interesting to see who is being recruited. They're not going to tell us,
But why isn't it more? I mean, you go after ICE. They're going after. They said they were going after the hardened criminals, so I can understand you say that so that you can beef up these, your force with guns to fight fire with fire kind of thing. But mostly they're going after the weaklings. They're going after the nonviolent regular folks. I mean, this is a white woman, 37-year-old white woman who is driving away, from a protest. And I just think you see something like this, and man, why not just make this a totally 100% peaceful force? If you're gonna, this is the reality. They're not dealing with hardened criminals. Make this like a security thing, an unarmed security, give them batons. There doesn't have to be deadly force.
You've already said they're going to rationalize the use of guns or the presence of guns as necessary to negate the possibility. It's like the death penalty, right? We want the death penalty because it's going to make people think twice about before they commit a heinous crime, especially murder. And the reality shows that most murders, including first-degree murders, right? People aren't thinking about prison time. People aren't thinking about the fact that they might be committed to capital punishment. This was an argument when I was a kid in law school, and it's been a persistent argument since then. Okay?
Well, let me ask you this: if you were a family member of the person who was killed today, 37-year-old woman, I guess you're filing a lawsuit, aren't you?
Yeah, and then the question is I suable? Okay, because there's government tort immunity. Okay, I mean, a lot of people don't realize that the government is beyond being culpable for lawsuits.
So the only thing you could really aggressively,
tort immunity.
Tort immunity. So the only thing someone could go after them if it was wrongful death against an officer or against. I don't know. I
really don't know. They could try a lawsuit and get beyond it. I think if you could show that, see, in the instance of George Floyd, it was pretty clear that there was an intent, right, to do harm. Yeah. And so the least that could happen is that because George Floyd was completely incapable, right, of rendering violence, and then the officer knew that, and yet up to 4 officers were restraining him, with one causing his death by kneeling on his neck, and so you have to find circumstances that bad where the conduct of the agent or officer is beyond any rational explanation.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really tough, especially
it is going to be difficult.
More evidence doesn't come in that gives us a better view. All right, Dan, I think we got to wrap it up here. We'll come back again later in the week, but thanks for chiming in. And I don't know, I didn't know that about. I knew that the Venezuelan crude was a little heavy, but I didn't realize it wasn't light sweet crude, like the good kind of light sweet.
It's called sour. Yeah, it's heavy sour because of the sulfur content. Yeah.
High in sulfur. That's what I've heard. I've heard people say, "Oh, it's high in sulfur." But the oil companies are going to have to decide: can they take stuff out of that? Can they make money on this?
It would take billions of dollars to, and then they're saying, the infrastructure. We're just going to help them rebuild the infrastructure. That stuff has been rotting for almost 2 decades, right?
Yeah. Hey, that's like going in and saying, you got to go work with these computers. I got an Apple One and an Apple II, and I'm going to ask you to do something with the internet. Oh, wait, I got a 64K machine. I got a 16K Max.
Wait, can it still, with these 5-inch discs, can it still do those?
I got a TRS 80. TRS Radio Shack. I'm running basic. It's like, it's not that easy. Easy.
No, man.
All right.
No.
All right, Dan, take care.
I'm going to look up how sweet. Let's look up how sweet Guyana's oil is. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
There he goes.
Later. Thank you very much for having me on.
Oh, there goes my friend Daniel Phil Gonzalez, College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University, Professor Emeritus. We get his views. We talk. It's hard. What do we do? Our power as members of a democracy is our vote. And maybe the lesson is when friends who gave away their power so easily in 2025 or 2024 rather. I mean, it's their fault. that we got the guy in there now, because enough people of colors peeled off so that in a plurality where 49% is all you need to win, that's all. No one got a majority vote. No one. And it's all these low-level participation voters. And it's up to people to start talking to people about stuff. About this is what's happening. Because our power comes on election day. So don't give up the power. The news is sad all over the last couple days. But it didn't have to be this sad if we all voted. And if some of us weren't fooled. Dan says Guyana, which is where that boat that they captured today, the U.S. captured, it has light sweet crude. But it's the boat that is often used, this Bello 1 is the one that's often used in the black market trade. That's what the allegation is. So U.S. seized the boat today. We're going to get the oil. I don't know. Who knows? Keep following, though. Keep following. Because more so the oil movement than the fentanyl and the cocaine movement. And then keep your eyes on Minnesota and see what happens there. Okay, we're going to end our show today. Before I end, hey, I just want to remind you that, I'm doing my show, and I keep mentioning this because, we're dependent on your tickets. On ticket sales. Emil, Amok 69, My Trump Derangement Syndrome, A Real Journalist Stands Up. I get a lot of subtitles. Go to Playground-SF and check it out. Go to the box office. 69 Emil, Amok, A Real Journalist Stands Up. I'm a real journalist. I'm a real journalist. And I talk about the situation. So check it out. And tickets are on sale now at that website. January 17th, 7 p.m. January 26th, 8:30 p.m. February 2nd, 8:30 p.m. February 7th at 2:30 p.m. It's a fun show. There's a QR code if you want a QR code. There, I'll wait for you. There, you can freeze it. You take a picture of it. Okay. January 17th, the 26th, February 2nd, February 7th. Different times. But check it out. Go to Playground-SF SoloFest. All right, that's it for me. We like to end with a little love and kindness. If you tuned in, thank you very much. If you're a regular listener, I see you in the chat. Thank you for being there. Really, really, thank you for being there. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for keeping us keeping company. And yeah, Happy New Year to you all. All right. So before we leave, Dan mentions that, Guyana, probably less likely to be exploited. I don't know. Everything's fair game out there. The United States takes what it wants. It's bully pulpit. This is beyond bully pulpit. This is bully politics. All right. We end with a little loving kindness because that's what makes the world go round. So, the loving kindness meditation, all forms. I like Sharon Salzberg's. I could adapt it, but it's kind of like the form you learn first, and it just feels right, right? So as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Mahal Gita.